tomorrow. Perfected in the magic of March.
Again, rebounded by Indiana. The game is over.
For the fans who love the crunch of the pads, prefer a dunk,
Oh, he just shook the gravity.
and expect nothing but the best. It's Bigger Ten. Here's Steve Dace.
And greetings. Welcome to a new episode of Bigger Ten. I am Steve Dace with my co-host, but you know the drill, never partner, the one and only Aaron McIntyre. Aaron, 4 weeks from today will be Big Ten football media days. The magazines are now all out in full force. Phil Steele's, the most popular one, is releasing here this week. Before you know it, we're going to be sitting here with NFL training camps opening about the exact same time as Big Ten football media days. Players are already reporting for off-season workouts in June. The season is just around the corner. And 1 year from now, we're going to be playing the new EA Sports college football game on a PS5. So are you excited yet?
I absolutely am. And there are really two more landmarks in my summer kind of breakdown. One is Independence Day, and then the All-Star break, which actually I think was pushed back maybe a week this year.
Yeah, it is.
So it's a little bit closer to the start of media days, all things media days. And really in the next couple of weeks, I think some of the smaller conferences will start to have their media days as well. It's getting real. I took your copy of Athlon that you gave to me. It's sitting down in the man cave basement bathroom right now. Every time I drop a deuce, take a little bigger chunk out of that. So,
Interesting choice of words.
You wanted to know. You wanted to know what I was doing while I was dropping deuces.
I think America wanted to know.
Yeah.
Needed to know, in fact. Didn't want to know. I think America needed to know that, in fact. Any day now, we should get the report of the Big Ten's finalized new TV deal and the records it will break, and probably changes in how the Big Ten will schedule accordingly. The ACC announced today that it will be going, starting next season, to no divisions, and you get 3 permanent rivals and rotate everybody else. A lot of speculation that that's what the Big Ten will do in accordance with the new TV deal that starts next year. So this is a great time right now. We got a little bit of a lull before all this kicks into high gear by this time in July. So let's read the room here a little bit. I thought it might be interesting to go through every program, Big Ten football program in the Big Ten, and kind of what's the temperature in the room, right? And I boiled it down to 3 descriptions. All right? It can be chill, it can be meh, or it can be fired up. And here's the thing. You could be chill, meh, or fired up for different reasons. You can be fired up negatively, fired up positively, right? Okay? So let's go through, and we'll do it. This segment we'll do the East. Next segment we'll do the West. Let's go through every program in the Big Ten, and I'll give you what I think the temperature in the room is, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, all right? So let's start with Indiana. And I'm just going to go, meh, because I kind of think that's been the temperature in the room for Indiana football fans virtually my entire life. This is a program that has the second longest Rose Bowl drought in our conference, has not been since 1967. To put that in perspective, that year at the Rose Bowl, Indiana lost to O.J. Simpson. That's how long ago that was, okay? And so, yeah, they had the breakthrough kind of storybook year during the COVID year, but remember, they couldn't have fans at the stands, right? Okay? Last year was a bitter disappointment. I just kind of get the sense, especially, with Trace Jackson Davis coming back for Indiana basketball. A lot of people think they're the preseason favorite next year. It just seems to me it's kind of like, eh.
Yeah. Nope, I think you nailed this one, especially after the last couple of years where exceeding expectations during the COVID season and then having high expectations and not living up to them in the least last year. There's a lot of doubts around whether Tom Allen can actually make Indiana some form, their version of relevant. So I think, ambivalence, the meh, that's probably the right reading for that.
All right, let's talk. And in case you're wondering, folks, we're doing these alphabetically, so no favorites. Let's go to Maryland. I think Maryland fan is fired up right now. First of all, they hired the guy with the worst record in the history of college football. And didn't Mike Locksley come in here with like a career coaching record of like 3-31 or something like that? Last year, though, they got to 7 wins. They won the first bowl game. Since the first year they were in the Big Ten, they're bringing back almost that entire offense, and it's going to be one of the better offenses, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. Now, let's not talk about that defense, where like everybody went in the portal and it already wasn't good. But I kind of get the sense Maryland fans kind of a little fired up right now.
I don't know. I would classify them as chill, because I think there's still part of them, the back of their mind, that's like, yeah, we do. We have reasons for optimism right now. But at the same time, we know we could go 3-0, 4-0, 3-0 in the non-conference and look really good doing it, and end up going 4 and what would that be, 8, something like that. So I think they're chill, reason for optimism. But I think in the back of their minds, they're like, let's see if we can do this all Big Ten football season.
All right. Next up, defending Big Ten champion. It's been too long since I've said that. Michigan. Since it's really a small sliver of fans that follow recruiting at every school. It's just a bigger, smaller sliver at the southern schools, right? But it's most fans don't get nitty-gritty on recruiting, and the Michigan fans that are following recruiting are not chill. But they represent a small sample of fans overall. Overall, Michigan fans, pretty chill. Vanquish Ohio State, get to the college football playoff. Jim Harbaugh, National Coach of the Year. You're bringing back 33 of the 47 players that were on the 2 deep in the Orange Bowl. Aiden Hutchinson just got to be the number 2 player in the NFL draft, and he's staying home and playing for the Detroit Lions. Michigan fans right now, it kind of just seems like, and much of the best players in this program were actually in the youngest 2 classes. So this team is set up for the next couple of years. Michigan fans, provided they don't follow recruiting, because that's a dumpster fire right now. If they're not following recruiting, I think they're pretty chill.
I don't know. That sounds pretty fired up to me. When last year at this time it was fired up, probably the opposite direction.
Yes.
So that sounds pretty fired up to me, because last year you were looking to do some firing of your own, starting with the head coach. If things didn't turn around quickly, that sounds pretty fired up.
I think Michigan State fans are pretty fired up right now. The ones that follow recruiting, they have the whole Tuck Coming meme. Because Michigan State is having, unlike Michigan right now, a fantastic recruiting season. Last year, getting to 11 wins, winning a New Year's Six Bowl, and you're still talking about a program that really hasn't had a chance to really recruit a roster yet with with Mel Tucker, and maybe they never will. Maybe this will always be a team that will be somewhat transfer portal focused. Who knows? But I think Michigan State fans are pretty fired up right now that. They're going to have the opportunity to achieve at the level Mark D'Antonio did, but with someone that from a media and pop culture perspective has a lot more cachet and juice than kind of the dulcet tones of Mark D'Antonio.
For me, this one was the hardest one to kind of diagnose in the entire league, Michigan State, because there's always, because of the transfer portal, even if the fans are really going to be honest as well, with the transfer portal, there's always the possibility that it's Illinois a couple of years ago, Indiana maybe this year, or in a little bit last year as well. There's always that possibility that things just don't gel. So this one was hard to diagnose. If I put it, I would say chill. I would say chill is what I've seen. But I think there are more reasons for optimism, a lot more reasons for optimism than pessimism. So I don't think fired up is off base that much.
So Penn State may have the most, and they're right up there. I skipped Ohio State. How did I do that? Freudian slip. My bad. Ohio State fans, or was it a Freudian slip? Ohio State fans, I think they are absolutely fired up. I mean, the complete meltdown going on over there about losing one game to us in 15 years. But, if it motivates them to come back, and avenge that just a year later, then it will all be worth it. But they're absolutely a fired up bunch right now. They have the number 1 recruiting class in the country right now. They just brought in Jim Knowles, who was the celebrated defensive coordinator that turned the Oklahoma State defense around. So, I mean, they get to start the season with Notre Dame and end it with Michigan, and both those games are at home. If you are a Bucknut, you want this thing to start next week.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't really have much more to add than that. Just start and end with the loss to Michigan, not making it to the Big Ten championship game. I think Bucknuts are out for, as you said, to avenge that, and I think this might be as on tilt as the horseshoe might be all maybe the better part of the last decade, just because they've been the big dog, especially knocking off Michigan so many times in a row. They're going to be on tilt all year. We're
talking about a team that won 11 games and won the Rose Bowl.
Yep.
With a despondent and fired up, out for blood fan base.
Yep.
Goodness gracious. Let's go to Penn State, because if it's not the Bucknuts that have the most rabid, zealous following in our league, this team does. And yet, I think the mood in the room is, meh. They're 11-11 the last 2 years, but they just gave James Franklin a contract. Aaron, he could be terrible the next 4 years, and it would still cost that university like $38 million to get rid of him or something like that. Yeah. I mean, they're never getting rid of him unless they can Jeremy, who is the Tennessee coach, where they leaked. They went out. Jeremy Pruitt. Yeah. Yes, they admitted to the NCAA their own bagman using McDonald's bags. Remember that? Mm-hmm. They leaked to the NCAA their own NCAA violations to get rid of Jeremy Pruitt. But that's the SEC. We don't do things like that up here, okay? So I kind of get the sense that Penn State fan is just, I think they realize they're cornered. Like Michigan, they got a lot of talent in the youngest two classes. And, you got Sean Clifford there that no one's excited about. Drew Allar, who was the number one pro-style quarterback in the country in the last class. He's not quite ready yet. So maybe this is just a year. If you're a Penn State fan, can we, make a bowl game, do something, because we think maybe the future is bright. So I get the sense right now that they are just kind of,
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks around Penn State right now, and I think I would put this as a meh as well. I don't know whether to go on an optimistic or pessimistic meh. I would say if you put a gun to my head, it would be an optimistic meh because of the youth that they have, and let's just see if James Franklin can actually coach, because you're going to find that out this year. You're going to find that out this year whether or not he's actually a good coach, or the biggest success he's had has been more a result of the coaches around him than necessarily he himself. So
I mean, like Joe Moorhead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's an optimistic meh, because one way or another you're going to have some answers to those questions.
There certainly is. There is James Franklin's record at Ohio State, where Joe Moorhead is his OC. And then there is James Franklin's record at, Ohio State, I meant Penn State. And then there is James Franklin, let me try that in English. James Franklin's record at Penn State with the other three OCs that he's had. And one of those things is not like the other. That's kind of what you're alluding to.
Exactly.
All right, Rutgers. I think their fan base is pretty chill. They were in the Gator Bowl last year. Granted, they didn't get to a winning record, but they got in there from an APR standpoint. There's a lot of excitement. They had a top 30, 25 recruiting class last year. The guy that's there steadily building it has proven that he knows how to turn Rutgers into a consistent, program that consistently competitive. I get the sense that they realize, you know what, man, the nuts and bolts are there. So it's just a matter of taking the time to fill it in with the right personnel. They're pretty chill right now.
Yeah, this was another one that I kind of had trouble with, but then I thought, they don't really have a reason to be fired up on any direction, and they don't really have a reason to be apathetic in any direction, so that leaves one more option, and that's chill. So it's going to take, a few seasons like this probably for them to achieve whatever form of relevancy, and that's actually going to be one of the good things about getting rid of divisions like what we think is going to happen, is that you can actually measure yourself up, not just against your own division, against the entire conference. That you can say, hey, we finished better than Nebraska this year. We had a better conference record, better fill in the blank than Nebraska or Purdue or what have you. That for teams like Rutgers and Indiana, who have basically no shot, once in a blue moon shot of actually being competitive within their own divisions. They might not be ever competitive at the top of the Big Ten without divisions. At least they'll be able to measure themselves up a little bit more accurately against the rest of the conference.
Well, what'll happen for schools like Rutgers is, right now they know they got 3 L's on the schedule every year, no matter what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. And a lot of years, it's going to be 4 L's if you throw Michigan State in there. So even if you don't throw Michigan State in there, that's a fourth of your season of 12 games that you have those L's. So to get to 6 wins, you've got to go 6-3 in the other 9 games. That's not easy to do, right? So having the assurance of knowing every year, are there going to be some years in that rotation you'll play all three of them? Yeah, but you don't have to do it every year. And I think that does give you a boost. They also have a 4-star quarterback there that's a redshirt freshman that may start for them this year. Maybe he'll be a guy that can help move the program along. So there's some reasons to think that they're in good shape for the long haul. It's just a matter of how long that long haul is. We'll come back. Let's talk about the temperature in the room in the West Division when we return. All right, back here on Bigger 10. We just went through the temperature in the room 4 weeks from today with Big Ten Media Days kind of unofficially kicking off the season. And by the time we get there, Nebraska and Northwestern will already be in fall camp. So keep that in mind. So this thing's kicking up here very quickly. So what a great opportunity to kind of read the room, get the temperature of the room of the fan bases for all these Big Ten football teams. We went through the East. Aaron, let's go through the West. And let's start with Bert's Illini. I think they're kind of chill. In a way, I think they remind me a little bit of Rutgers. They've done a massive facilities upgrade there at Illinois. They have a fantastic indoor facility. They have a legit coach, someone who has proven, albeit at a ready-made program, but he still had to go win the games, okay? He has proven he knows how to win in this league. They were very competitive last year. They beat Wisconsin, for example. I think that there's an idea that the nuts and bolts now are here. It's just how much time will it take for Bielema to go out there and get the personnel to get us the results on the field. And remember, they were one game away from bowl eligibility last year. So I think a Illini fan is pretty chill that things are kind of in motion right now.
Yeah, I think you could also put meh as well, just because this is such a tall rebuild for Illinois again. And there's got to be a good portion of their fan base that's like, I'll be back when you can show me, consistent results. So I would actually go a little bit more meh, but definitely an optimistic form of apathy right now for Illinois. I don't really think they have a reason for pessimistic apathy, but there is a difference. I didn't know I would be dissecting apathy and fired upness as much as I have today. But I like it.
So if there is any fan base in our league that is never apathetic, it is this one. Like Ohio State fans can get apathetic with all the winning. That's why they're losing their minds about losing to Michigan. They know what it's like. Okay? Penn State fans feel a little apathetic right now because they're resigned to the fact they're married to James Franklin until pretty much Jesus returns. So if there is one fan base in this league that never is apathetic, it is the Iowa Hawkeye. It is Hawkeye Nation. All the years I've covered this team now, it is a fired up fan base. It's just a matter of what direction is the fire, okay? And you would think a team that's won 26 games the last 3 years or something like that, and when you consider that one of those seasons was shortened because of COVID, this has actually been a very successful program in our league. They're coming off a West Division championship, but I think the fired up is actually going the other way. I think there is a lot of frustration with trying to win every game by being +3 or 4 in the turnover margin and Riley Moss returning interceptions. Not having even a competitive, let alone functional offense, for example. Doing nothing to upgrade the quarterback position whatsoever. The offensive line was a disappointment for Iowa last year, and the guy that was the anchor of that line, he's now in the NFL, Tyler Linderbaum. And I think everybody also recognizes that we're closer to the end of Kirk Ferentz's Hall of Fame career than another extension. And so what will come next, and I think there's a fear that it's being conditioned, or they're being conditioned to accept his son as the successor, whose offense has been anything but inspiring. You're the Hawkeye fan here. Have I correctly deduced the situation?
Yeah, I was going to say chill, but then I kind of like the description of the way that you gave it that fired up, because I think we're chill about the team as a whole because of that defense, which is going to be, I think, great again this year. Pretty good.
Sneak peek to my preview. I'm going to have Iowa with the number 1 linebacker unit and number 1 secondary unit in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
In my power rating. So
and that I can't really argue with you on that. It's just on offense, it's just soul crushing. Just soul crushing. Every single 3rd and 5 or more, knowing that you're not going to convert it most times.
Yeah.
It's just I would rather hammer my fingers over and over again, then watch that offense work. And I really don't know what it's going to take to fix it. They said they had some new route trees. I remember that. Some new route trees for the wide receivers to run.
I can mash potato.
But you also lost two of your best most talented wide receivers to Purdue.
To Purdue in your conference you're going to play this year.
And one of them actually left after spring camp or spring practice. So I think there is.
Apparently he wanted some other new route trees.
Yeah, I think there is. A portion of the base that's chill. Like, yeah, we're going to be competent overall, but yeah, there is a lot of negativity, fired upness on the offensive side of the ball. Because, I mean, if Iowa just had a competent, this is like the opposite discussion with my Kansas City Chiefs. If they just had a consistently competent defense at like every level, just a little bit below average, they would win every game by 3 touchdowns probably. The same similar thing can be said about Iowa's offense. Just hold your own. Give your defense a break every now and then. So, yeah, I actually changed my mind there. I think fired up in a negative direction is probably a better descriptor.
You remind me a little bit of being a Michigan fan during the Rich Rod era, where when we were on defense, I'd literally just walk away from the screen. And if it was 3rd and long, I knew there was a better chance we would stop a team on 3rd and 2. And they would try to run downhill because we're still Michigan, and so we still have the hog mollies up front, okay? Mm-hmm. But if it was 3rd and 12, we were doomed. Our linebackers would be lost in space. We couldn't cover anybody. And so, I just got to the point sometimes during the Rich Rod years, I would literally just watch us play offense and then just get up and walk out when we were on the defensive side of the ball. All right,
sad.
Let's go to Minnesota. I think Gopher fans kind of chill. Phenomenal year last year. Getting to 9 wins with all of those injuries and a difficult schedule. I mean, if you had Minnesota getting to 9 wins after giving Bowling Green its first FBS win in 3 years at home, you should do this for a living because you're the only living person on earth who did. And yet, there they were, getting to 9 wins, beating Wisconsin for the Axe a second time. PJ Fleck has done that. I mean, I know he's got the Pentecostal youth minister persona that annoys people, but the dude is a pretty good football coach, substantively. And Minnesota is kind of Minnesota nice to begin with. I get the sense they're just kind of, things are going well, man. We like the direction. We're going to bring back the most 5th and 6th year senior roster points in the Big Ten. And it's a school that if they don't win the West this year with all these guys back and they go 8-4, fan base is still going to be like, that's a really good season. So I think they're, in fact, if I had a different category here, I'd describe Gopher fan as so chill, they're zen.
I actually think, yeah, that's probably true. That's probably accurate. They should be fired up, though, based on the trajectory they ended last season on. As you mentioned, going from Bowling Green to beating your arch rival Wisconsin and denying them another trip to Indianapolis. That's a pretty nice trajectory and got a lot of pieces coming back. You should be fired up, but I do think they're just chill right now.
All right, let's talk next about Nebraska. I think Nebraska's fired up, and I think they should be. Because I've been in this situation as a Michigan fan. I was in this situation just 12 months ago as a Michigan fan with a favorite son. And now, granted, Jim Harbaugh had been far more successful so far than Scott Frost has been. But situationally, there are similarities for sure. And you don't really want to get rid of one of the greatest players in school history unceremoniously. So what you want is a final data table, like a completed data set. And where the data just speaks for itself. And so you can remove the emotion of that's, everybody's All-American from back in the day. Remove that emotion and what's the data say, right? And so this year you bring in Mark Whipple. We just watched Mark Whipple completely resurrect Kenny Pickett's his career at Pittsburgh. I mean, Mark Whipple made Kenny Pickett a millionaire. Kenny Pickett had 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions the previous season. Last year, he had 42 touchdowns and a dozen interceptions and a Heisman finalist. Mark Whipple has a phenomenal record. Now, some people say, well, hey, Scott, we don't think Scott Frost will fully relinquish OC duties to him. There's your verdict then, right? Okay? This is the season now. The excuses are gone. There's a legit quarterback. Casey Thompson is not as talented as Adrian Martinez, but he knows how to take care of the football. He's had 4 full years to recruit. this is it. If he cannot get you to at least a bowl game, and imagine when we brought Nebraska into the league, we'd be sitting here saying, we hope Nebraska can get to a bowl game again, but here we are. If he cannot get it done this year, because even if Thompson gets hurt, you still got Brock Purdy's little kid who was a 4-star recruit transferring in from Florida State. There's an adequate backup there. There is absolutely no excuse for Nebraska not to be playing a game that counts in the standings in late December or early January. And so this is the year that you just let the season play itself out. You're okay either way because you're going to get an answer, right? If they're really good, we get to keep the favorite son. If they're really bad, he fired himself. You cannot lose. So if you're a Nebraska fan, you should be very fired up and excited for this season because one way or another, you'll get a definitive verdict, I think.
Is there any universe where, well, maybe I shouldn't say any universe, but is there a possibility that Nebraska ends the season like 8-4 in the fan base and the university, and it legitimately just feels like an empty season? I don't think there is, actually.
Could it be if you looked at their schedule? That's a funny question should you asked it. If you looked at their schedule,
8-4 looks pretty good.
It does, but it could look like this: 7-1, finish 8-4. Doesn't the season end something like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa, or something like that?
That's right.
Okay, so I mean, imagine that if you're 7-1, 6-2, and then you finish 8-4 or 7-5.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Look bad doing it.
Yeah.
So. Barring that, now that you mention it, they have got to pull an upset somewhere. They've got to pull a convincing upset that doesn't look like a fluke. They've got to make what I'm saying is they got to make a statement game sometime late in the season in a game that actually matters, and for him to have a chance at coming back and for the fans to feel any semblance of hope for the future. That
game with the biggest non-conference game in our league this year, I believe, is actually Oklahoma at Nebraska.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Ohio State and Notre Dame is going to have all the perception. But if Ohio State loses to Notre Dame with that stature at the start of the year and then goes 11-0 from there and wins the Big Ten, are they going to be in the playoff? Yes. Okay. But to me, that Oklahoma at Nebraska, remember Nebraska gave them a hell of a game in Norman last year. You're getting Oklahoma with a new coaching staff. That's their first real test. New quarterback. I mean, Oklahoma's going to be very talented again, but a lot of new pieces. And if you can pull off that upset, what that will do if you're Nebraska, that's an incredible swing game for them for the rest of the year. But if you lose that game, man, I think it could swing the other way too. I think that might be the biggest non-conference game in our league this year is Nebraska against Oklahoma. All right, sticking with teams that start with the letter N. Northwestern, Nebraska's season opening opponent in Dublin, Ireland. I'm going chill because that's always what Northwestern fans are. Pretty chill. There's not many of them. You can pretty much, even when the team is good, take over the home stadium if you want. Okay? So they're Northwestern. They're pretty chill.
Yeah, I would put it probably at, I don't know. I don't know many Northwestern fans because there aren't very many, as you mentioned. Probably should be meh, but yeah, they're probably chill. And what says Dublin, Ireland more than Northwestern and Nebraska?
Indeed.
I'm still going to watch every single second of that game. But.
I mean, yeah, that's the first big noon game.
Yeah.
I'm counting down the hours until it kicks off, you bet. Okay, let's go next to Purdue. And I think after that bowl game, because everybody wants to, and rightfully makes a big deal, no David Bell. Best wide receiver the program's had in how many years? No George Karlaftis. And this is a school that's produced a lot of NFL edge guys, but he's the best one they've produced from a college, production standpoint in a long, long time. And so everybody wants to make a big deal about those guys being gone. But remember, they didn't play in the Music City Bowl either, guys. And Purdue went down there, and what was essentially a home, they might as well have played that game in Knoxville. They're playing Tennessee in Nashville. It's absolutely a Tennessee home game. And they went down there without their two guys. Tennessee's really fired up to be in this game. It's their first bowl game in a couple of years. And for them to go down there and win that game the way they did, I think that they proved something to themselves that, hey, obviously you'd rather have David Bell and George Karlaftis on your team, but we've got other really good players here. I think Purdue and its fan base is very fired up. If you look at the trend in the West Division, Aaron, usually the team that wins it is the team that escapes 2 out of 3, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. That was Iowa last year. Purdue does it this year. They don't play Ohio State or Michigan. They get Penn State at home to open the year. Okay? I mean, they have a very favorable schedule. I think that Purdue fan is pretty fired up right now.
And I think they should be as well, because you're always going to be, you at least know you're going to get entertained when you watch Purdue, or at least there's a good chance to be entertained because of that offensive identity. And Jeff Brom, at least when it comes to my Hawkeyes, but I've seen him do this, or at least try to attempt to do this with other teams. He just picks at scabs. Whatever's working, we're just going to run it until
scratch where it itches,
exactly.
you might say,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So at least you're going to be entertained, and I think that's a reason to be fired up, especially when as you mentioned, the schedule lines up nicely for you.
Finally, let's go to Wisconsin. I never thought I'd say this about Badger fan. It was really an underwhelming environment. When we played them in the big noon Saturday game last year in Madison, I mean, the most hype that stadium was is when the Michigan bench got in to jump around.
The students were late getting in there.
Students were late getting in there. I think they recognize that Graham Mertz is not going to be the Russell Wilson transformative quarterback they had hoped for, but there's literally primordial ooze behind him, so they're just kind of resigned to their fate. That they obviously found something last year with Braylon Allen, who looks like the next great Wisconsin back, but they've seen all that before. You know what I'm saying? Mediocre quarterback play, run the tailbacks into the ground 40 times a game with good defense. I think Wisconsin fan, the vibe I'm getting is they kind of figured out there isn't a next step, that we've maxed out where we are, which is still great and historically great given where that program was pre-Alvarez, obviously. But I think they really bought into, we've got the ultimate DC, now we've got this elite quarterback prospect. Now is when we're going to take that step. And I think they're realizing now they're not going to take that step. They're going to remain kind of, that's their brand. That's who they are.
Yeah, I don't know. I sense that they're pretty chill. I haven't seen any signs of, it's not like they didn't like it. When that does work, it's not like they don't like it, because it's been very successful for them. Would it shock them? Would it shock any of us if they ended up on top of the division this year? Not shocking, no.
No, but it'll be like 9-3.
It's not going to be just a world-beating team, but it wouldn't be shocking either. And so I think they're pretty chill. I think they see, our baseline is much higher. Our floor is a lot higher than the rest of this division. Our ceiling may be lower than what we'd like it to be, but, that's okay.
All right. We'll come back, look at our Twitter poll results for this week, and get to our feedback of the week to wrap it up in a moment. This week's Twitter poll: if you were Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren and could only make one change to Big Ten football, which one would you choose? Get rid of divisions was the overwhelming favorite, nearly got the majority of the vote, 48.2%. Go back to 8 conference games would be 23.7%. No way the TV partners are going to allow that. 15.1% of you said, I like the divisions, I just think they should be realigned. 13% of you actually voted for the one I would vote for, and that is to add Virginia and Georgia Tech. Why? Because it would give you, both of those are AAU schools. That's that prestigious academic association that Big Ten cares so much about. And they also would further expand Michigan, although that would help, further expand the Big Ten's recruiting reach into the parts of the country where there's actually where there's actually population moving to, as opposed to away from in our part of the country. So that's why I would actually have chosen the latter. I'd add Virginia and Georgia Tech in order to do that. Which one of those two options would you have chosen, or which one of those options would you have chosen? That's
really interesting. I know there was, back in realignment talk, there was some discussions about absorbing some ACC schools. I think getting rid of the divisions is going to be your best bet at this point. There's still a lot to play out in terms of NIL, transfer portal, and how that shakes out or settles out, or whether it ever does. I have to think that there has to be some balancing some equilibrium. That's the word I'm looking for when it comes to this market. That has to be found. And I think conversations about the future, I think you got to kind of figure out what that looks like before starting to add schools, because what you're talking about is a savvy move to prepare for the future of the sport. to prepare you geographically, and I think that's smart. But I also think there's still a lot to be said about how things shake out with NIL.
Okay, that brings us to our feedback of the week. Todd Hackigan, I think that's how that's pronounced, says, since the Big 12 is dying, what about adding West Virginia and Cincinnati? Actually, the Big 12 is not dying at all.
No.
Big 12 is actually in far better shape than the Pac-12 is right now, and it's bringing in Cincinnati. But those programs wouldn't be brought in anyway. They do not. They're academically, they don't measure up to what the Big Ten, what its standards are. Whether those standards should still matter as much to the Big Ten is another topic, but they do. And so those universities don't match up. They don't really add anything whatsoever. West Virginia is from one of the least populated states or areas in the country. Not a lot of great football talent there. Obviously, the Ohio, that region is pretty much covered by the team that wears scarlet and gray. So they don't add anything at all. But the Big 12 is not dying. The Big 12 about to name a new commissioner. Bob Bowlesby, a guy I've known for a long time, former Iowa AD, did a great job holding that league together. They actually might get a few years here where they hold Oklahoma and Texas to the very end of their deal with the expanded Big 12 at the exact same time, which should give them a nice little cushion and launch for life without those programs. So I think the Big 12 came out of this in about as good a shape, Aaron, as it possibly could have, given where things looked about a year ago at this time.
Have you been paying attention to some of the, speaking of NIL again, some of the NIL deals that Miami and Florida are handing out?
Yeah.
Don't sleep on UCF, guys.
Yeah.
I think
UCF, by the way, is the
years.
largest undergrad university
Correct.
in the state of Florida.
So, between them and BYU, Cincinnati's a solid program. You're getting good television markets, but you're also, let's just be honest, they're not going to become blue bloods overnight. You're also got the opportunity with some of these schools. They could become really, really competent, like I don't know what a good they could become something akin to like Penn State or Wisconsin, where it's like they're really solid football programs, not blue bloods. But I think some of these schools, some of these programs could be primed for ascension if they play their cards right.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Bigger 10. Don't forget, like, rate, subscribe, 5-star review, follow, share, whichever applies. However you watch or listen to us, whether it's right here on YouTube or iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, etc. Help us to find more Big Ten fans just like you, please. You can also follow us on Twitter to keep up to date on what we think about all things Big Ten by following us there at Bigger 10. For Aaron McIntyre, I'm Steve Dace. We'll see you next time right here on Bigger 10.